Hey guys, Blake here with another video. And you may or may not know, I ordered this tank here and it arrived with a huge crack in it. So what I want to do is show you today how to salvage a tank. Maybe you've got one with a crack in it, or maybe you see one secondhand. We're going to basically turn this useless cracked piece of glass into a tank today. Let's jump straight into the video. Okay, so for the tools today, all we're going to need is two simple tools. We've got here a glass cutter. Make sure you find one appropriate for the size glass that you're going to attempt to cut. And we have here a razor blade or Stanley knife blade or box cutter blade. So this one's pretty simple because the end piece is fully intact. I will show you one later in this video that the end piece isn't intact, and we're going to get a bit more creative for that one. But for this, pretty much we're just going to get our razor blade, go through all the silicone here, separate all the pieces out. So I'll just get it separated now into individual panes of glass, and then I'll pick up the camera again and let you know what our plan of attack is for this tank moving forward. Okay, so I've got all the pieces here separated. This here is the base piece. It's important to not get that mixed up with the side pieces. And the other thing that's important is that the side pieces are longer than the base piece, so we need to keep that in mind when we cut it. But what we're going to use here is our glass cutter. Basically we're going to mark it at a certain point here. We're going to mark it that much distance lower here for the base one. And we're just going to cut it and basically recreate this tank just in a bit of a shorter version. Okay, so I've got the two side panels here lined up next to each other, and it's important to get yourself a bit of a square here so you can make sure that they're lined up properly. You'd hate for it to be sort of on a little bit of a diagonal or something like that, and then your whole cutting is going to be off center. So just going to basically line it up now. And then the next thing to do once you have that is actually to flip it upside down, and we're going to square off the top part that we're going to square off the top part, and to put it in place we're going to actually lay this bit of timber. Try and get the straightest bit of timber you can. This is a shelf, from an old cabinet. So try and get it as close as you can to the cut, but be warned that if you get it too close, then you are at risk of sort of chipping it out at that corner if there's any weakness where the break has been made. So I've got this all squared up here now. I don't know if you can see that. Got this all squared up just like that. Now we're going to use some quick grip clamps here. We're going to clamp it into place just because we don't want it to move at all when we're going to place our cut. It's important as well at this stage to make sure there's no bits of gravel or sand or anything on the table, because that does present a risk of cracking your glass as well. Just firmly, doesn't have to be too aggressively tightened. We just don't want it moving around basically. Once again, we'll just give it a quick double check that it's all squared up, because you only get one go at doing this, and I think it looks pretty good. So now it's time to use our glass cutter. This is the glass cutter here. Some of them have oil reservoirs that you can fill up and basically oil the surface just to make sure it's going to travel across the glass a bit easier, and you'll get a more consistent cut that way. Important thing about this tool here is make sure you only do one pass. So don't go back and forth. It will most likely mean that you'll get a rough cut if you do it like that. So I'm not pressing hard now, but we're just going to go down once. I'm just basically checking. It's going to be pretty close on that side, but should be okay. Another thing I'll do just quickly is remove the silicone that is still on the glass here, just so we don't have any gaps in our cut. Using a brand new razor blade really helps with this stuff. Alright, so now I'm going to do my pass here with the glass cutter, and hopefully we should be okay. There we go. So once we've got our glass scored, then the next bet is to actually move everything to the edge. I like to keep the wood clamped down because it'll give us a nice smooth surface basically, and we're going to snap the glass at that point. So I'm only going to do one at a time. We're not going to try and get too tricky here, but that's our next bet. So you should be able to see a score line pretty clearly. Starts off a bit dodgy on this one, but not a heat we can really do. We'll just try and line it up and hope and pray for the best. It's a good idea to wear protective hand and eyewear at this point in time. So I'll just show you, definitely put protective eyewear and protective handwear on when you do a task like this. Just like you only get one go at scoring the glass, you only get one set of eyes, so it takes 2 seconds and you'll be better off for it. Okay, so now you just want to apply some even pressure. Just want to apply some even pressure downwards. And there you go. You can see, fairly even cut. It could be better, but that's really, that part there is our rough start there. So we can sand that down. That's not a huge drama. We'll go ahead and do the same for the other piece, and exactly the same. We'll just apply some even pressure. Doesn't have to be anything crazy. And that one there is much nicer, more even cut. So really happy with that one. Okay guys, so we've got all the pieces cut now. Before we decide to silicone this together and make our shortened version of the original tank, what we're going to do is just take our razor blade and scrape off any remaining silicone whatsoever on the joints. In addition to that, what we're going to do is take our acetone here, a nail polish remover, and a cloth, and just rub down all the surfaces that we want the silicone to adhere to. Because what this is going to do is just remove any oils or silicone residue that's left over from handling these pieces of glass. So I'm going to go ahead now, we'll clean up the edges, and then the last step is probably the most exciting, sticking it together, and hopefully we've got a tank at the end of all this. Okay guys, so the edges are all nicely cleaned, and the last thing we're going to need is obviously some silicone. Make sure it's 100% silicone, no mold inhibitors and things that will be bad for your fish. And also I've just got here some painter's tape. It just helps if you don't have a second set of hands just to tape things together, and should hold it together. So for this, because it is a sort of rimless setup here, I'm going to silicone a little bit different to how I usually do it. I'm just going to run a bead along the edges on the inside and just stick it together that way. The tank itself actually won't hold that much water, so I'm not overly concerned about how much silicone we're going to use. I'd rather it you know, be a bit neater looking than anything else. So I'm going to go ahead now, run an edge of silicone, and we'll try and stick this tank together. Okay, so it's all stuck together, and there is just a little bit of excess to clean up here. So you can use specialty tools and all that, but all I'm going to use is just the corner of a spoon. I'm just going to run it up all of the edges inside. Okay, so it's all done now. We're just going to give it probably 24, 48 hours, and then we'll leak test this little tank now. Okay guys, so it's the next day now, and as you can see, it's stuck all together, as you can imagine, a fish tank. And actually, I didn't have time to film it, I wish I did, but I also fixed up this one. This one here is previously a 3-foot aquarium. Obviously it's a bit shorter than that now. The main difference with this one was that this end piece and part of the side piece was actually broken, and what I wanted to show you was that you could actually cut this side and use that as the end piece, and then just cut that at the same length of that one. But basically the same principle applies with this video, and the main thing that I wanted to get out there was the message that if you got a cracked tank, don't despair, don't just smash it up in the recycling bin. Maybe invest, these are super cheap, $5 or $10 in glass cutter. At the worst case scenario, you get a bit of practice cutting glass if you ever want to make your own lids or anything like that. And yeah, just cut it a bit shorter and Bob's your uncle. Now I've got 2 tanks and empty bin, and I can do what I do best and fill these up with water and hoard more aquariums. So hopefully you liked this video. Hopefully it provided you with a bit of food for thought. If you liked it, it always helps me out to smash like, hit subscribe, and all that fun stuff. Other than that, I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching.